Hello everyone, how you doing? You're very welcome to this week's Hurling What's the Score with myself, Aidan Raftery, and as always, joining us we have Andrew O'Shaughnessy, former Limerick hurler, taking us all through all the hurling from last week and I suppose from this week as well. Yeah, like I was saying there, Andrew, some very good matches there last weekend. I suppose that the best one to kick off with would have been the Tipperary game in Thurles. Yeah, the Tipperary versus Waterford, I should say. Full of maybe it comes across like maybe their Waterford's indiscipline has cost them again because I suppose Tipperary played well in the first half. They had the majority of that, but in the second half, then Waterford came back into it and they played very well and they looked like they were going to win it at one stage, and but then again, then they were down to 10 men, and then Tipperary came back into it and ended up winning it quite well. But it was not only that aside, and either which one of them would have won it, but it was a great game of hurling to watch as well.
Yeah, it was good. It was competitive. Like both teams in the first half, fairly even, and so this time of year, like it's getting down to, as I said last week. So from here on in the league, people are putting more importance on it. You're getting closer to your first 15, your first 20. Good game, indiscipline again for Waterford, but again, I thought you were very unfortunate. So first indiscipline was Davy getting the yellow card. I think every time that ref Davy, he gives me a yellow card for no reason. So it's only natural that managers roaring from the sideline, but the yellow card was a bit dramatic, I think, and even the red card was harsh considering like you had Tipperary halfback kicking Stephen Bennett. He got some awful treatment off the ball, kicking him off the ball, and then there's nothing about that. There's no furore about that. So fast rewind a week earlier, and everyone wanted Kyle Hayes suspended for a year or whatever, and then CCCC came in and gave him a suspension for a game, which is fine, warranted. But again, you have to have a level playing field. So Kyle Hayes, what he did was a reaction from what happened after happening. I'm not condoning it, but he flicked back, fine, red card. But then you had a premeditated kick off the ball on a fella's leg. Like there's no furore about that, and that's the disappointing thing I would take from the game. It was tight, tough, intense. Certainly the lines are set for championship meets, so when they meet in the championship, it's going to be a helpful letter, and that's a game to look forward for. And I think Davy kind of would be happy with the result at the end of the day, giving Waterford extra motivation for when they meet in championship.
That's it, and I think that game is going to also be in Thurles as well, isn't it? That for that
Yeah.
championship game, yeah. So I suppose really, that there's something special about Thurles on Munster in a Munster championship. It has that special aura about it. You probably know about that, having played for Limerick in Thurles as well. What were your thoughts on that back in the day?
Yeah, yeah. So that's always the case. Like Thurles is always a special place. So it is probably, even including Croke Park, is probably the best surface in the country for hurling, and there's always a great atmosphere. The stand is far back enough, but at the same time it's on top of you, so you're getting that kind of cauldron atmosphere. So when it's a full or even half, three quarters full stadium, the noise there is fairly nerve wracking. So again, like fast forward into championship days are special there, and especially if you get to a final, then it's even more special because just everyone's watching it and the pressure's on. You're on the real stage when you're playing hurling Thurles. So again, like is there, the home venue for Waterford is away. They have to go for all the matches have to be away, and they're probably better off playing in Thurles, to be honest, than Walsh Park.
That's it, and there'll be a good atmosphere. So moving on to the next game, Antrim 318 to Laois's 118. Yeah, that seems about right because the both teams are very close, and they're both very similar in teams, aren't they?
Yeah, they're along the same kind of trajectory. Maybe Antrim maybe a year or two ahead of where Laois want to be, but similar enough. So they'd be similar enough standard and players and skill level what they're at. So again, that was going to be a close encounter. But again, we called it Antrim. We felt Antrim had the better track record at the moment and the better consistency. So that was always going to be a win for me, I felt, and it proved that way.
That's it. And moving on to Clare versus Galway. Galway had a 124 to 22 point win over Clare in Cusack Park, which is never an easy place to go. But Galway needed this win really to kind of re-establish themselves after the defeat.
Yeah, but looking at the game, it was really a damn squid affair. Like there was absolutely no intensity in the game. They're literally going through the motions. Both teams, I felt. So, prime example, David Fitzgerald got a few balls from puckouts on his own with about 30 or 40 yards. So when he got a ball, he could turn and run 15, 20 yards, pop it over the bar. That can't happen. That won't happen in the championship. So it's just, I don't know what way they set up both teams. They're kind of playing devil's advocate and did want to show their hands, and it reflected itself in the match. It was kind of two heavyweights that weren't really interested in winning, but I think unfortunately Galway won. They wouldn't have minded, but it was a disappointing game more than anything.
I suppose really, looking at that game with what you said in mind, their eye is more on the championship than winning this game, which is a shame because, as a player or even as a team, you'd want to go out and win every game you play, which, look, it's not always possible, but you want to win a game, be it in the league or the championship. But I suppose maybe that's the both teams' priority is the championship.
Yeah, that's their prerogative, and you understand that all teams are like that. But I kind of saw in commentary during the week that the suggestion that both Galway and Clare were kind of getting ready for Limerick and trying to try things out for Limerick and not show their hand too much. But then if you do that, that's total disrespect to other teams. And like Tipperary are the form team, Cork are the form team, Kilkenny are going well. So if you're kind of lining up to identify yourself, right, this is how we're going to beat Limerick, you'll get cut out and you'll be knocked out of the championship by the other teams.
That's it. And moving on to Kilkenny's, Kilkenny had a good win over Dublin, 22-25 to 117 in Nolan Park, more or less like what we would have predicted. But this is still a very good Dublin team, though, and they did give them a game.
Yeah, so the Dublin are actually going well in the league. So they won a match, and the matches they lost narrowly enough. So we would have been happy with the performances, albeit not with the result. But again, as I keep saying about the league, it's about your performance, and then you're going in the upward trajectory. Is there a positive outtake from every match? And Dublin certainly are going that way. And when it comes to championship, they'll give Kenny a run for in championship, albeit they mightn't beat them, but they'll definitely take a scalp or two in Leinster.
That's it. And next up is Westmeath 115 Limerick. Your home to your own team there. Limerick 127 in Cusack Park. Like we said last week, always a lovely pitch to play on. And that's you had a good win over Westmeath, as a lot of people would have predicted, and not a bad game.
No, it's a fine game, but most importantly, then, as I said, the surface in Mullingar is absolutely perfect for hurling, even though it's used for majority football, same as Clare in Kerry. It's absolutely ideal for hurling, and it showed in the match. And Limerick got up there like everyone expects them to win. Of course, they're always going to win, but it's just about the performance and stuff. But you likes the players coming back from injury. So he likes Aaron Gillan then back. Well, he's not coming back from injury, but he's back in the panel. He got the game time under his belt. Dermot Bourne straight back into the team after being over in Abu Dhabi for a month or two. So it's good to reintroduce them into the team and just seamlessly. So no pressure. There was a no pressure situation from a Limerick perspective to go out, do their job, win the match, and get a performance and get more time under the belt for the players. And that was a success in that regard.
That's it. And I suppose really with regards to Aaron Gillan, I know there's a great strength and depth in this Limerick team, but he's one of the players in the squad that makes the team really tick on the big days. So it's essential to have him back, isn't it?
Of course, because like he's a big man, and the thing that Aaron Gillan does is that if a ball goes in, he can be on 2-on-2, and invariably he'll occupy the two players, and that'll create space for other players. So if he doesn't, some games he might use Aaron Gillan wasn't really in the game bar to freeze, but he's taking another player out of the way. So he's taking two players out of the way to create space for other lads like Peter Casey to pop points over there, for Keane Lynch to come through, for Shemi Flanagan to get points, and people don't realise that. So if he's not on the score sheet from play, he's definitely creating space for other people to get on the score sheet, and that's invaluable for this Limerick team.
That's it. And finally for that division as well, or for the day was Cork 214 to Wexford's 18 points, a home game for Cork, a close game. I suppose we were kind of expecting that though, because this is a very good Cork team.
Yeah, so I know I said last week that I expect Cork to win, but I generally wouldn't be surprised if Wexford would win it, getting a reaction from their previous match. It was a good game. Wexford hurled very well. Extremely unfortunate. I think Cork took the lead in about the 68th minute for the first time in the match, and they got level, went a point up, and then they got a fortuitous goal. But that's how you win matches. You can't be winning by 10, 15 points every match. You just need to get a win, and that's the result that Cork actually hurled well and ground out a result, and it showed good results from them for the year ahead, that they can win both ways at the moment.
That's it. And I suppose just before we go on to the fixtures for this weekend, it seems to be a trend in football, and I don't know if it's as much in hurling, is this I suppose the naming of dummy teams. We've seen it against, I suppose, Roscommon versus Mayo. Roscommon made 3 changes before the game, and Mayo made 6 changes. It's been said in the papers now, there's people are starting to get annoyed with the naming of dummy teams. And I suppose last weekend as well, for the Tipperary game against Waterford, it was a very nearly 11th hour naming of the team for Tipperary. Now that could be for a whole host of reasons. Maybe I think they were waiting for one or two the fitness on one or two of the players. But what are your thoughts? I know it's in the league, but normally it shouldn't, or it doesn't happen in the championship. What are your thoughts about it in general? It's kind of, I suppose managers kind of tend to do it to throw off the opposition, or to try and I suppose confuse not show their cards.
It stems from the Gerlach Nain era with Clare. He did that a lot of times, and it was grand at that time because it was novel and it was something new, and people weren't prepared for it, and it worked for Clare. But nowadays, it's this day and age, everyone knows everything about the opposition first 15, the opposition most likely 5 subs come on, 6 subs come on. Everyone knows about that, so everything's analysed. So dummy teams is kind of counterproductive. I don't see the reason for it. The league, fine, because you're bringing on players that might be known in the county, so you're trying to cause a surprise. But again, come championship time, every county manager knows everything about the opposition. There's no question about that. They're analysing it. That's what the stats teams are for. They get all the information. So if you haven't played inter-county hurling, and you have stats, you'd have footage from under 20s or from college hurling. There will be footage no matter what. So it's kind of counterproductive at this stage. I don't see the real necessity for it anymore.
That's it. And moving on to the fixtures now for this weekend, some very interesting fixtures, and I suppose it's no more so. We start off with the 1:45 throw in for Waterford versus Kilkenny in Nolan Park. Again,
that'll be a good game because despite what people think, 2 different provinces, they are neighbours. They live side by side, so it's always a good game. And Waterford, they're the type of team that even when Kilkenny were going extremely well, they never feared them because they had Waterford always have natural hurlers, and if they take it on to you and they out hurl you, you're in trouble. And that's what this Waterford team are capable of. But again, this Kilkenny team, they're definitely rebuilding. They're definitely getting back that aura of invincibility. They're strong across all lines. And what I noticed from their match weekend, they're really working the ball through the lines, nearly as times maybe overly so, but they know what they're doing. They're keeping it short, and then they're going long when they need to. Should be a good game, but again, back to the adage, Kilkenny are in Nolan Park, so it's rare that teams go there and come away with a win. So again, I think I'd be tipping Kilkenny.
That's it, and I suppose this is one of those games where we've seen the Waterford's indiscipline, I suppose, came back to bite them. It happened in their first 2 games, I suppose. One they drew, one they lost, or whatever. But in this one, against Tipperary, like I said off air there, they were playing really well in the second half, and Waterford actually looked like they would win it. But then they had a player sent off, and then Tipperary came back, and they really won it quite convincingly. So it's they really can't afford that. They'll have to tidy that up against Kilkenny, because Kilkenny will punish them.
Yeah, because I know the first 2 matches the man sent off, and then they had a week with no one sent off, and that was good. And then last week they had someone sent off. I felt the send off at the weekend was I don't think it was warranted, to be honest, considering what went on in the match. It was a bit of abnormal to the way it was refed. So if he was refing that way, that's fine. But more than one should have gone throughout the game. Even I can see the frustration from Davy then on the sideline. So the goal that actually changed the game in the second half, I felt the cornerback was fouled. He was pushing the back, a blatant free, but it was waved on and got a goal, and then Tipperary got a run on them. So Davy would be looking at that, and he'd point that out, say, we're not that far off it. So Tipperary, the form team along with Cork, we're not far off it. This changing of the game was in this instance. That will not be awarded in championship. Come championship, that's a free all day long. But for some reason, I don't know, I think it's a personal viewpoint of the ref and David Fitz. I think they have a lot of history of conflict, so I think that didn't help Waterford at the weekend. So, but again, coming championship, that'll hopefully all be resolved.
But I suppose a number of things from a Tipperary point of view maybe changed games at different types. I suppose it was good to see Rhys Shelley back in goals as well. He made some very good saves, a very solid goalkeeper, but I suppose they have a very good solid second choice keeper as well. I suppose Shane Callanan getting injured as well, he'd be a huge loss for the next couple of games until he comes back. Yeah, it's but it's still, when you look at this Tipperary team, even though the number of players they have out injured, they still have 4 wins out of 4 games. That's very impressive when you consider the injuries they have.
That's exactly it. They're really building up the panel. So they don't have 15. At this stage, they don't have 20. They're on to 23, 4, or 5. That's a really strong in-depth panel. Liam Cahill's building. Shane McCann, if he is fit, I actually can't see him making the team the way the other lads are going, because there's this Tipperary team this year. They seem obviously they have a license to go for goal, and by God, they're going for goal. They're really, if there's a half chance, they're taking it. And I like the speed that the forwards play. It's so impressive. It's hard to negate that. But then you have Bonner just linking everything up and doing the donkey work and just the selfless play to create that space for the rest of the forwards. And I think he's key to this Tipperary team clicking. So if you want to stop the goals coming from Tipperary, your first port call, I'd say, is negating and stopping Bonner.
That's it. And I suppose really looking at it, as we're all aware, Bubbles O'Dwyer retired from Intercounty Senior Hurling there a couple of weeks ago. Do you feel like looking at their performances, they don't seem to be missing them, because I suppose that's down to the strength and depth that they have. He was a good hurler, and a lot of people would have said maybe that that they'd miss him because of the quality that he has. But they're still doing very well even without him.
Yeah, that's a sign of a good team and a good environment. So when you lose a key player like Bubbles, that his impact his loss isn't felt as keenly as it would in other counties. So if he was in Wexford or say Waterford or Clare, and he was gone, they'd really feel his impact and they find it hard to replace him. But that's a sure sign of the quality Liam Cahill's building up, that it's just man up to do the job. And if he's gone, the next man's up and away to go. And they certainly are doing that this year.
And I think like when you look at I suppose Tipperary's minor and under-20s teams, they have, they did well in the under-20s, won the minor as well, did well in minor last year. There's some serious players coming through, so it looks like for the next couple of years they'll have good strength and depth with regards to players coming through as well.
Yeah, so if you're looking at the coming teams, if you ask me today, the coming teams for the next couple of years, over the 5 to 6 years, will be Tipperary and Cork. They have a lot of successful underage teams coming through, winning at either minor, 20s or colleges hurling. And that success is you can't coach that success. It's an inbred thing that you have to experience it to get the confidence from it. And Tip and Cork are certainly building up that reserve.
That's it. And moving on to the next game, Dublin are at home to Laois in Parnell Park, throw in 1:45. Now you'd have to tip, given how good this Dublin team are, you'd have to probably tip them to win this game. I know Laois are thereabouts, but they're Dublin really have that steel, like I said last weekend, and you'd have to tip them for a win in this one, but it could be a close game.
Yeah, I tipped Dublin anyway, but the thing with this Dublin team is they have been going well when they play the bigger teams and the perceived favourites. They really up their performance, and they've been unlucky with a few of the results. But equally, then when they're playing the lesser teams, so to speak, they don't keep their performance the same standard. They kind of lower their standards to a certain extent to suit the opposition. That's not always. Obviously, that doesn't work. So it leaves a game like this. While everyone would predict Dublin win, again, Laois could upset them as well, because Laois are very similar to when Dublin play Kilkenny. Laois don't have any fear of Dublin. So again, it'll be an interesting game. It'll be closer than people think, I imagine.
And next up then, Tipperary are away to Antrim in Corrigan Park in Belfast, throw in 1:45. Now you'd have to tip the way Tipperary are going at the moment, another tip win, but this is going to be a very interesting game because we've seen how close Antrim have ran other teams up to this game as well. There won't be a pushover, but Tipperary should win this.
No, and you have 2 Tipperary managers over both teams, so Darren Gleeson with Antrim and then obviously Liam Cahill with Tip. So it'll be interesting. I think Tip will use it as a kind of a rest week, if that makes sense. So they'll travel up and they'll have of their starting team come championship. If they've 6 or 7 starting, that'll be about it. But it'll be a great chance for the fringe players to get game time under the belts and get the experience of senior hurling in a hostile enough environment.
And moving on to Limerick versus Wexford at 1:45 in the Gaelic grounds. It's home advantage for Limerick. I think Wexford are still without a few of their players. Still, Lee Chin is to come back into the squad. Should be another win for Limerick.
Should be, but again, I'm not surprised. This is a result hard to call because Wexford had a very bad result against Clare, but then they had a good performance at the weekend where they were very unlucky not to win Cork, not to be Cork down in Cork. So they're going to travel with the same confidence and motivation. And Lee Chinless, he was a massive advantage to them last week. But they're the prime example of a team that can't be down a few of their star players. Whereas other teams like Limerick and Kilkenny are surviving if they're down and Tipperary, if they're down a few players, they still eke out a performance and get a good performance. Wexford can't have that. They depend on 4 or 5 lads to carry that team through. So a Limerick win possibly, but again, I wouldn't be surprised if Wexford won that. And albeit if they did win it, I wouldn't think John Kiely would be all too concerned about the result either. Give him extra time for a bit more training.
That's it, and of course we know the semi-final lineup as well. We know like Tipperary are in there, Limerick are in there, Cork are in there as well, I think. So it's all to play for the other spot as well. It's going to be a very interesting semi-final, but this is the last round of games before the National League final. So it's going to be interesting to like Limerick know they're in the knockout stages, so they'll be just looking to the semi-final and then the championship. But moving on to Westmeath are at home to Galway at 1:45 in Cusack Park in Mullingar. You'd imagine that Galway should win this. They really need to make it 2 in a row, don't they?
Yeah, and I also find obviously the most enthralling part of when Galway play Westmeath is a change in jersey. Like that just gets me. It's lovely to see the variation of the away jerseys, but it's every day of the week is a Galway win. Westmeath might put it up to them. They might give them a scare for a prolonged period of the match, but again, you can't see anything but a Galway win, to be honest.
That's it. And finally, moving on to Clare are at home to Cork in Cusack Park, and then it's 1:45 throw in. But these are both teams now with putting good performances. Maybe at times they might have played well, but haven't come out with a result. But the performances certainly are there, aren't they?
Yeah. So this Clare are in Cusack Park again on Sunday, and from their perspective, this is the 3rd match that they could possibly lose. So they won't want to lose 3 matches in a row, because again, like, momentum is it's a marvelous thing either. So if you're winning, you have momentum, it's good, positive momentum, but equally you can have a negative momentum. So if you have 3 losses in a row, you have to get your ship back on course soon enough. So Clare will be targeting this not to get 3 losses in a row. And again, equally, if you look at the Cork's side, they're flying it, absolutely flying it. They were nearly pipped last week. They were cut out a tiny bit. So eventually, you imagine they're going to have to ship a loss, and I'd say Clare will beat them on Sunday for some reason. I have a funny feeling.
That's it. And moving on now to the hurling team, the league hurling team of the week, and we kick off with the goalkeeping spot. Ryan Elliott, very good hurler. We've seen him in the club championship. There, he's a very solid goalkeeper for Dunley and doing very well for Antrim as well.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing about him, not alone can he's a good shot stopper. His restarts are very accurate and very, very good, and massively advantageous for Antrim. So your goalkeeper, as I said before, is no longer just a goalkeeper. It's about restarts and keeping possession. He's excellent at that.
That's it. They're nearly. It's nearly like in football. They're a sweeper as well, and of course his distribution is. He knows when to take short puck outs and long puck outs, and even like when he saves one and he pucks the ball out. His puck outs are very accurate. That's essential, not only in the league but with the championship in mind as well.
On the championship, so you can do all your shot puck outs and your long puck outs and your setups from puck outs. Fine, that's during the league. That's your rehearsal for championship. If they go good, bad, or different, it's all irrelevant once you get it right for championship. So that's all. Everything you see in puck outs, you'll be seeing again during the year. But again, you can't make it during championship.
Yeah, and then in left corner back, then Niall O'Leary, Cork's Niall O'Leary, good corner back, and he's been showing up well this year.
Yeah, sure. For the last couple of years, he's Mr. Consistent. He normally takes the danger man in the opposition team. And the thing about cornerback, as I always say about cornerback, it's not the lad that's dragging out and digging you that you worry about. It's the lad that gets out in front and can hurl you. And he's definitely doing that. And he's showing his form, his consistency. And
in the fullback position, Wexford's Simon Donoghue.
Yeah, again, he's making that position his own. He's strong physically, but he's got a good head in him. He knows what to do, when to just stop the ball and when to actually work the ball out. No, he's hurling well so far, and hopefully he'll carry that on championship.
And in the other corner, then there is Niall O'Municon from Kildare. It's great to see other teams like in the lower divisions making it into the team, isn't it?
Yeah, especially they had a great win against Kerry. They wouldn't have been fancy. No one would have fancied them for that win, but at home up in Newbridge, that was a great result for them. And I think they are going to be ended up playing Kerry again in the semi-final. So that's good motivation for them to get into the final against Offaly. So we'll see.
And moving on to the half back line, Kilkenny's Pádraig Welsh in the right half back position. Another great hurler, consistent hurler throughout the league and in the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, and he's like Tommy, like he can hurl anyway. He can hurl in the backs, he can hurl in the field, he can hurl in the forwards. And again, like wherever he hurls, he's going to be a massive asset to that Kilkenny team. And if they settle him in half back, then I think that's probably his best position. It's the best position for Kilkenny to have him in as well, because you get the most out of him half back.
That's it. And in centre half back, then Callum Lyons had a very good game against Tipperary the weekend.
Yeah, so like same with him. Anytime he gets the ball, it's the first 3 to 4 steps. He's just so fast over that space. And while you're thinking you're going to strike the ball, he's gone past you, and then you're tracking him. And just because he's running, he's automatically creating an overlap for the inside forwards, and that's a massive advantage. And with him as well, he's able to score from distance as well. So he is a centre back you actually have to mark as well.
And finally, on the other side, then is Offaly's Ben Keneally.
Yeah, again they're going well. They're top of the league, so they're into the league final. They'll have all eyes now on the semi-finals. Say not this weekend, the weekend after, who they're going to be facing, and obviously they want to win that. They want to get up to the next level hurling. So it's a massive year for them, most important year for them actually.
And in midfield, then you have Galway's Thomas Monaghan. Very good hurler. He's had a good league campaign so far. He's been playing very well in midfield for Galway this season.
Yeah, he's been very consistent. So what he's doing in midfield, he's mixing up well between going forward and staying back off and support the defence. So he's helping them out in defending, but he's also linking up with forwards and creating scores and chances. And again, he was excellent the weekend.
And Lee Chin still comes in there in the other midfield position. Good to see him back in the squad again.
Yeah, sure. He's made it great. I think he got 6 points from play or something. That's a nice introduction, come back after injuries. But no, he's the heartbeat of that Wexford team. If he's not in the team, or if he's in the team and he's not going well, that's the Wexford. They have no chance of winning. But for him to perform like that, they're always up there with the top tier teams then.
And in the half forward line, then we start off with Tom Morrissey. I think he's been in a few of these teams of the week. He's got a few man of the matches as well for his performances. Played well last year. He has to be a shoe on for, well, obviously with the championship still has to be played, but the way he's playing at the moment, he'll be in line for an All-Star.
Yeah, he's tipping on all right. We won't say too much about it now. He's going okay. He's really discovering his consistent form, and like you can watch a game and see Gerard Hegarty, and everybody talking about Gerard Hegarty, be talking about Aaron Glenn, to be talking about Keane Lynch. But then you look at the team sheet afterwards, and Tom Morris is after getting 4 or 5 points in play and setting up a goal or two. So it's the unglamorous work that people don't see that he's so good at, and he always chips in. He's always consistent. So like it's great to see him, because I always never said he's out of form, but it's great to see him back on the scoring charts as prominent as he is. That's
it. And in centre half forward, then we have Conor Cooney, another great hurler for Galway. Always shows up for Galway and always plays very well for them. He's very dependable, isn't he?
Yeah, he's very like Jason Ford, Tipperary. Like, so on the ball, he'll score from anywhere. He's so consistent, and if he gets 1 score, he'll get 5 scores. Same as Jason Ford. Like, they don't just do 1 or 2 points; they'll go to town on you. And like, especially he plays excellent centre forward. He just dictates the play, and he links up with his other forwards in midfield. He's a good anchor man to have down in the centre of the forwards.
That's it. And finally, on the last position in the half forward line, and I'm proud to say this as a Roscommon man, Andrew, Naas Connaughton gets the last position in the half forward line. They had a great win. Over Armagh at the weekend. It's good to see him back and playing well for Roscommon. It's nice to see a Roscommon guy in the hurling team of the week. It doesn't happen too often, but he is a very special hurler for Roscommon.
Yeah, of course, it's great to see the likes of that, because even the Sunday game mightn't even show the match, and if they do, they show little clippets, and you don't see enough. And it's not what these players need. They don't go for the limelight, but they need to be recognised. And his performance again was superb, and rightly he's in team of the match and hopefully team of the week, and hopefully it's not his last time we hear him this year.
Yeah, and finally that brings us on to the full forward line there. Jake Morris, Tipperary's Jake Morris makes corner forward. Yeah, played very well against Waterford on Saturday night, and got man of the match as well. Very, very. He's really is a serious hurler, and again, another dependable and consistent hurler for Tipperary.
Yeah, his three goals were clinical. So all the finishes they were hopped off the ground, could keep absolutely no chance. He's coming into great form right at the right time, just about championships getting nearer. So he's definitely one for opposition teams to be watching because seems to be in the form of his life.
And the full forward position then is Kilkenny's own Cody.
Again, like he's the forward you want. Like he'll pop points over there all day, but give him a sniff and he'll get a goal. He's in. If he doesn't get a goal, you can be certain he's going to create a goal for other people. And I just like his killer instinct, and again, he showed that at the weekend.
And finally, Kilkenny's Billy Drennan gets the other corner forward.
Yeah, he's been going well. He has been consistent throughout the league. So he's either getting 2 or 3 points a game, or he's getting a goal here and there, and he's been consistent. And he'll be happy with his form again. Timing it right, just not that he's timing it right, but he's actually finding form at the right time coming up to the championship. So they'll be a dangerous proposition in championship.
That's it. Well, listen, thanks very much for taking the time out to do Hurling What's the Score with us, and we look forward to looking back on this round of games and looking ahead, I suppose, to the league semi-finals. I suppose at this stage we look forward to those games next week. All right.
Perfect. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks very much. And that was former Limerick senior hurler Andrew O'Shaughnessy. Thanks very much. Bye. No.